how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
To infinity and beyond.
Some people without brains do an awful lot of talking, don't they?
It's classified.
You talking to me?
I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
I can't lie!
Expecto Patronum!
Entertainment X.
You never know what you're going to get.
For this episode, I chat with Brett Rigby, who's an agent at CGF Talent. This is the first conversation that I've gotten to have with an actual talent agent. So the conversation answers some questions that I've been curious about, and I'm sure other people have been curious about as well. So we talk a little bit about the business. We talk about his life and how he navigates the business and his intro into show business. It's another wide-ranging conversation, and I hope you enjoy. We're back. I'm Clayton Howe, and today with me is Brett Rigby. Brett,
Hello.
Thank you after this long work day, sitting
pleasure.
down with me. The day doesn't end for you.
No, it doesn't. I mean, actually, this will be my last thing of today, but then I will go on and continue. I will go home and try to be a husband to a very patient wife. Yes.
A very patient wife. Do you have I'm just curious, is there a rule of thumb for you with your phone? Do you stop answering emails or stop looking at your phone?
You're jumping right in, aren't you? You want to get right on it.
I'm just curious. It's tricky when you're, a functioning cog in the entertainment machine.
A lot of things can wait. I have a problem is I don't have a very good work-life balance. I don't.
Okay.
I acknowledge that.
All right.
I will, if I can see something and I have the ability to immediately fix it, my mind will be like, just fix it. It takes 3 minutes to send this email out, to forward this thing, to get this response taken care of, so that this actor has this casting director has this, but this manager knows this.
Yeah.
The issue is you probably deal with a dozen or so a night, and then it starts to compound as far as time goes.
And then it's 12:01 a.m.
and like, and Laura will be, Laura, my wife, will be like, don't look at it. Don't. And I'm just like, all right, I won't. And then I do. So,
Yeah, right. You roll over. You're like, I'm going to bed.
We've come up with a nice compromise, which is where we're trying to not allow them to know. The idea is if it's something that can wait, my personal problem is I want to quickly solve it. But what I'll do is I will write my response and then save it in my drafts folder, and then I'll just send it in the morning. So they technically don't know that I was available for that, but just for me, because I'm very, very type A with that, and I want it to be solved and off of my table, that I will take care of it and then send it at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m.
That's funny because I do that.
Yeah.
Sunday night, I will create 9 emails that need to go out, and then I'll just send them 9 a.m. Monday morning.
Well, and it's like, good morning.
Yeah.
Hope, you do
Yeah,
the
yeah,
whole
I do
thing,
the whole thing.
pre-greeting.
Good morning,
Oh, yeah.
Happy Monday.
That's it.
Stay
That's totally
warm. All the predicting the weather for the next.
It's crazy out, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Hope you made it to work. All right.
It's it's funny is that I actually did that yesterday. We mentioned before that I was supposed to be teaching tonight, but because of the blizzard that didn't happen, it was canceled. It's beautiful out. It's a lovely night.
A wonderful
and so,
March evening.
Right? It's very appropriate for March. But in the process of doing that, I wrote 4 emails that need to go to my students at NYU that were all set based on being like, this is what I'll say and this is how it's going to go. And then they canceled school and I wasn't going to see them. All of my greetings are wrong. Because they were like, great to see you guys. Great. I mean, so I have to go home tonight and change it all and then resend it out. I'm like, no, it's even more work than it should have been, which is frustrating, but it's fine.
The irony of that. All right. So what we're going to do now is let's rewind a wee bit. For theater and Brett, when did it begin? Or was it theater?
It was music theater that started me out. I am the youngest of 3. And myself and my 2 siblings were all very, very different. But from an early age, my mom found it it was very necessary and important to her to expose us to culture. So I'm from Lansing, Michigan. I went to school in Grand Ledge, and Wharton Center on MSU's campus was where the first tier tours would come out. So when I was a kid, when Donny Osmond was in Joseph, and when Phantom came around the first time, those were mind-blowing experiences. And my mom would take all of us, my oldest sister Shauna, my older brother Paul, and then myself, we would all go to a different show that she thought was appropriate. So that was the experience. My sister went to Les Mis and hated it, loathed it. She was just like, everyone is dead. This is 3.5 hours long. It's dark. I don't know what's going on.
No one speaks a word.
She took my brother, which is very funny, to Nonsense, which is where it's sassy nuns.
Yeah.
That was a huge misstep. I don't know why she ever thought that was a good idea. And she took, he hated that as well. She then took me to Cats, which I did not like. So I remember sitting there before it was opening, and if you remember the opening of Cats, there's a shoe. Mm-hmm. It's different now, but in its inception, you would start it, and there was a gigantic shoe out on the stage, or at least there was in this tour that we saw. Yeah. And I remember sitting down and her looking, she goes, well, that shoe's just entirely too big. Just okay, great, Mom. Good fun fact. And then we're sitting and watching it, and I'm like, no one's talking? What? Oh, they're literally just cats. This whole show is just them being cats and talking about being cats.
Yeah, they don't symbolize communists.
No,
or anything.
even a plot. I'm like, oh, okay. And then there's a sad cat and a fat cat and a happy cat. And the sad cat gets on a tire and sent up into heaven with the fat cat, and that is Cats. So that's kind of how I'm like, huh, okay. So that was a misstep for me.
Yeah.
Shauna said, no, I'm done. Paul said, never again, forget it. And I was just like, it just wasn't for me. I didn't like it. So she's like, the next season came around. Miss Saigon came out. And so we tried it again. We went there. We had the whole experience at Wharton Center. I loved it. First of all, there was a helicopter. And as I just didn't understand that was full on storytelling. And also I'll acknowledge I was young. I was probably 8 when this bug kind of bit. And you see the epic nature of it and the heightened storytelling and how it was aggressive and beautiful and soft. And that was something that it kind of completely awoke it. It something was awoken. Awakened. We'll put a D
I
on
make
there.
up words here. So
With
it's
them.
awakened.
And I officially was on board with that. And then I kind of started to pursue it and looking at it from there. And from that point, it turned into me wanting to be a lawyer or a doctor, what everyone says at that young age, to being like, no, I think I want to do this. I think this is where it should be. And then it spiraled from there. I did musicals in middle school, at the high school, and then all throughout high school. And then I started looking at them in college and listened to the Voice of Reason initially and went in for school or for music education. Hated that. So transferred halfway through, went and got a performance degree, moved out here and became an actor, and the rest was history.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Why was she taking you guys to individual shows different? Was it an age thing where you guys wouldn't all go to Nonsense or you wouldn't all go to...
yes.
Was that...
She also, she was cool in a way that she wanted individual time with each of us to let everyone feel important.
Okay.
The issue is I was the youngest and I would kind of just go along with everything. My brother Paul is the medium and he was the problem child. So everything had, I hated these peanuts, or my seat is too tight, or I'm not comfortable and everything. And he was that.
That's funny because I was that as the youngest child. As the youngest child, I was like that.
And I would kind of go along. And then Shauna just was too cool for school. And so she hated everything that had anything to do with her.
Okay.
And so if there was ever a time that she needed a posture to be cool, it would never be fun. So individually, she was a lot more fun. So my mom kind of did that. So the idea is we can all hang out one-on-one and have it be that experience and have it be better. So that's how she separated us.
So are you the only one who really pursued theater?
Only
arts?
one. Yeah. My sister works for the EPA in New Jersey, and my brother is a nurse anesthetist and also a flight nurse in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So we could not be different. 3 very different people. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool, and it's nice because we do nothing but make fun of each other's professions because they really have fodder on mine too. Everything becomes, is this a Broadway emergency? Can you not talk because of a Broadway emergency?
Oh, no.
I get that a lot. I get that a lot.
And you're like, yeah, actually, yes.
It's
Thank you for
superficial to
asking.
you, but yeah, it's really stressful right now.
It is.
Yeah,
The world is changing over here, so.
It's good.
So what was the transition from acting to agenting?
So I moved here and I had signed with an agent and I had a good experience. I was fortunate enough. I worked regionally for a bit. I was fortunate enough to, my agent at the time got me on Guiding Light because I was Try to make this like brief. So my brother was a paramedic at the time, and he said, "Hey, they're hiring people to work for what was the mobility unit, which was through Life EMS, which was the ambulance place that he worked for. Essentially, that'd be where you become like a basic paramedic, a low-level paramedic. Do you want to do that? It'll essentially pay your way through school." And it did. It paid unbelievably well and way better than a lot of other jobs that existed. Yeah, so I ended up saying yes to that experience. This is also after I went to school for music education and I moved over. I left that school and went to another school. I went to Western Michigan University. Right. This is there in Kalamazoo. He and I were living together. He said, "Do you want to do this? It'll help pay your bills." And I said yes. In the process of doing that, hold on, I lost my train of thought.
Guiding light.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I became a basic paramedic, basic EMT. Which
cool.
was fun. Essentially, it's just picking up old ladies when they fall, drunk people at a party.
Yeah.
If there was a real call that would happen, meaning like someone is really hurt, you would assist like the level 4, like the high level person. You would be there to help them, to back them up.
Okay.
Fast forward to me having an agent and doing that experience. I then, my agent is like, "Oh, well, soap operas need these all the time, and they always want someone who has real life experience." So she said, "Do you want to do this?" So my first one was on Guiding Light, and I said, "Okay, let's go." Like, that was my line. That was it. And I went and I had that. It was great, and it was done. And so great, wonderful, wrapped. That was weird. Okay, soap operas are weird. They asked me to come back. I came back and did it 2 weeks later. And in that one, there was jargon in it, in what I was saying. And the jargon was wrong. The stats the person would have been dead. And so I said, does this person die? And they're like, "No, they're supposed to be alive." So I asked if I could change it so that it was accurate. They said yes. And then that like opened this wonderful thing where all of a sudden I became recurring on the show. And it was always me and a background actor.
Script.
What'd you say?
Slash
you
script.
Well, essentially it was only 12 variations of the same line for 2.5 years. Yeah. But I ended up like, there were times, what was great is when the show ended up going off the air and people started dying and horrible things started happening to people, I ended up being really, really fortunate that I was working all the time.
You're saving them
or taking them to the hospital or doing all that stuff. And so when that show went off the air, I essentially then came back into it and forgot how to be an actor. I was basically on soaps, and it's not really the same thing as like being a music theater actor.
Yeah.
Kind of got my teeth kicked in on it for a while.
What do you mean teeth kicked in?
It was rough. You go
like
from
back
being,
to and
you forget those muscles I did not keep up while I was working on the show, and I was able to be on that show and essentially pay my bills. And so I stopped auditioning because that show was allowing me to pay my bills and like take vacations. I mean, it was great. It was, you essentially are like living this dream, which is where you're like, I'm a working actor right now. Is that what this is? I wish I would have saved better, but that's okay. I had a really good time while I was doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
I got out of it. The show got canceled after 72 years. My father's like, "Only you would go on a show," and then 72 years later, it would be canceled while you're on it.
Thanks, Dad.
Thanks, Dad. A lot of hope. So then I ended up coming back out into it. Something wasn't right. It didn't fit right. It didn't feel right. And that was when I started thinking about grad school. I just wasn't really in it the same way. And if you as an actor, if you're not in it and willing to put up with the nonsense, do something else. And so I kind of like rethought. I applied to grad schools. I applied to Yale, UCSD, USD, NYU.
Or this is for...
This is exclusively for theater.
Theater grad school.
Yeah,
okay,
and
so
not
still
even music
performing.
theater, just theater.
Okay.
The one exception was NYU
acting.
for exactly for like where you go and like you meet those people and you're like, "Sir, you're wearing an ascot, so I'm just gonna listen to you. I feel like your beret and your ascot."
It's like, "No, shut up, listen to me."
no, and like, where are you from? That's an accent.
He's like New Jersey.
Yeah, it's totally true. It's totally true. Auditioned at those schools.
Okay.
NYU was the only place that I was the one that involved music. I got accepted to a couple, including NYU. Laziness kind of took over. And with that, I was able to live in my apartment, get a master's in music from NYU, and also an advanced certificate in vocal pedagogy, which is like the study and understanding of the voice, which is something that I loved. It was so great to do. Graduated from that, signed with another agent, booked a job immediately, hated it from its inception. And it wasn't that the people weren't lovely and the job wasn't fun and where I wasn't gorgeous. It was. All of those things were great. I officially realized, and at the time my girlfriend, my now wife, is like, you just need to find your happiness. So if it's not this, it needs to be something else. And that was officially what it was. So I finished that job and that opportunity and came back and was like, it's not being an actor anymore, but I just literally spent $250,000 at NYU. I hope I can do something in the field. And I was lucky that I was fortunate enough, which kind of like I reached out to some casting director friends that had cast me. And my responses were, you are not done yet. A lot of actors go through this. I don't really want to bring you over to this side.
You're reaching out, asking them, hey,
can I be an intern? Can I sit in the room? Can I be a door monitor? And a lot of times they were willing to let me do that, and I had those experiences. But the overall thing was, oh, you're not finished yet, Brett. And it was hard because I needed to besides telling you that I am, I don't know what I can do for you. I'm done. I want to be finished. There's something else I want to do. And it was really, really crazy is of all these places, and I'm on Playbill and Backstage and looking all these places for jobs. Yeah. I read this breakdown, which was pithy and funny and a little bit sarcastic, but also like sincere in the way. And it was basically said like looking for a rock star intern at the time. Must be willing to answer phones, comfortable with email, all of these things, and doing those thankless jobs like getting coffee. And like it was written in a way like that, which is where you're kind of like, at least there's humor in this. So I I applied. I got the call to come in and do it.
Was this like a TBA agency or an undisclosed or untitled
They don't really
thing
tell you in the actual breakdown. They don't say what it is.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I think we still don't when we look for interns and assistants. I don't think we say it until you come in and meet, or we email and reach out to you. That office was CGF. And so I took the meeting, and as I was in the meeting, I met with Joel Carlton one-on-one.
Did he write the email? Or
Totally
posting?
did.
That's
Completely did, yes. And in the meeting, I realized that from my undergrad, when I ultimately ended up choosing to go with a different agent, when I showcased and did all of that, he tried to recruit me as an actor. And I remembered him and that. And he remembered, he's like, oh my gosh. And so we kind of like had like a moment and we chat. And so we ended up just talking for 25 minutes.
Yeah. The
meeting finishes. And I was just like, I have to have had that job. He goes, so I've got to tell you, we just offered someone this position. I wanted to take this meeting simply because we didn't offer to them until this morning, and I didn't want to cancel on you last minute. It was so great to meet you. If something changes, please let me know. And I remember being like a little upset, but being like, okay, it is what it is. I mean, I had been told no in interviews up to this point, so I was used to it. I shook his hand, and he held it and waited a minute. And then he goes, great to meet you, Brett. And then that was it. I walk downstairs. I go in the elevator. I walk outside. I walk to go and get on the train at 59th Street, which is where their offices were at the time. And my phone rings, and it's him. So it was probably 4.5 to 5 minutes later. He's just like, if I were to offer you the job right now, would you be able to start next week? And this was on like a Wednesday. And I was just like, yeah. And he goes, okay, great. So we're going to let the other girl go, and you can start on Wednesday. And that was that. So she was, this was, by a job, I want to be clear, this was an unpaid internship.
Yeah, it wasn't a...
Yeah, it was not.
401k help.
No, are you kidding me? No, I would, once in a while, I would get like lunch and a muffin.
Yeah.
So they would, what was cool about it is to start like that, it was always what it was going to be, but it was hard because at the time I was, I was 30. A 30-year-old male intern that's weird. And it doesn't fit in a lot of what's happening. And they took that chance. And then very quickly it became the full-time assistant, then a junior agent, and then franchised and all that stuff. And that was a CGF thing. And so I've been franchised for 4 years now. I've been with CGF for just over 6.
I'm so curious. When I hear the word franchise, I think of like, the company that owns McDonald's, and then they have McDonald's across the country are independently owned. Is it the same model when you speak franchise with agencies?
No. So essentially, what it means is
I'm not
when
comparing CGF to
no,
McDonald's.
but I kind of actually they would love that. So that's
okay. Okay, great. They own the most real estate in the
like,
world.
I was gonna say, and they need the most apples for their apple. What is it? The apple cobbler.
Oh, they're
thingy.
good. 2 for
or
a
the
dollar.
apple pie. Those things
They're
are
so good.
They're so good. They. So I mean, no. When you become franchised in our world, it essentially means so as a junior agent, well, like you're an assistant, you do not negotiate, you don't do any of those things. As a
You're just
junior agent,
handling.
you are you are facilitating and being the middle person with the actual agent,
Got it.
sending out appointments, helping facilitate callbacks, dealing with things, sending on any kind of information so that when the agent is negotiating and needs information and everything, the assistant has helped make that readily available for you. That's basically what ends up happening.
Okay.
So when you're franchised, the company has now vouched that you are able to negotiate on their behalf. And if anything goes wrong, or there is dishonesty, or there is, I mean, this is terrible to say, but there is stealing, or there you are, if someone is a thief,
All of it.
then the company is vouching on your behalf, and the company is ultimately liable. So the idea is you are working for them. They are kind of your cover into the agent, into the industry world. So it's a big deal because there's a strong element of trust that needs to be there when they choose to franchise you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
All around.
And it's a nice feeling when they're like, they vouch. Yeah. They say that they believe in my character enough that they believe that. I mean, it isn't to say that it happens all the time. It doesn't, but it has happened. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the manager of, like, I don't know, freaking nail salon, you're the manager.
Yeah, totally.
They're going to charge you, if there's money missing from the drawer.
It's
the same
your
thing.
responsibility.
It's
exactly
the same thing. Okay, so what was this, and I'm going to rewind for a quick second. What was this decision to go into to being an agent? Because you're also talking to casting directors. Were you just kind of putting out all feelers for everything that's on the other side of the
to be
table?
on that side of the table, it was casting directors, it was managers, it was everything. And I was not. What was really hard is I had just got a master's, and I was just trying to break out and have this experience, and people would not take me seriously. And a lot of times I would come in and I would sit down in a meeting, and like we would be in an interview, and the person interviewing is 19 and I'm 30, and that's weird. Like, and it's not their fault, but the idea is, imagine if you're a casting director or more of like an associate or an assistant.
Yeah.
And the first line of defense in the interview process, you're going to sit down and meet with like a grown ass man. It's just the dynamic was weird. And I realized that it was hard for me to get over that initial thing. You just tried to be articulate, and you just be yourself. And honestly, it was a question of being like, having faith that like, it will fit. I just need to keep putting these feelers out here and staying honest about it. And eventually it will fit. And I was able to be, I was lucky enough. Yeah. I had success in it, but I mean, it probably took me 2 months, 2.5, 3 months
to
find something, to take enough pieces of humble pie before you're that humble apple pie. Just go back, go for a circle on that
2
McDonald's
for a
thing,
dollar.
right? Come on. But we would do that, and then it was enough of that until I was able to find success.
Were you seeking, did you have a mentor at the time, or were you talking to anyone to kind of figure out what your path was in your life, or was this all on your own? You're just like at home.
A lot of conversations with Laura, a lot of conversations. Well, I mean, it's having an existential crisis. It's kind of right on par when you're 30. Like, it makes sense to me when you're literally like, so I used to do this, and like I say this as a joke and in jest, but it's also serious. I was fine to go to the gym and all that stuff. When I was on the show, there were opportunities that I needed to have to take my shirt off, and so it needed to look pleasant enough where that was a thing.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that anymore. Like that is a certain level of work, and the idea is like, it's not a question of like physical fitness or things like that, but that's a very specific kind of stuff.
It's a mental fitness.
Yeah,
really.
right. And it's to the point of being like, oh, you'd read a script and you'd be like, can't believe I have to, all right. Yeah. So what, I have 2 weeks, what I have to eat, and it would turn into that. Yeah. I mean, it's a joke that I make now, but there's also like truth in that.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of conversations about trying to think of like, what do I want to do? What did I love about the business? I loved being an advocate. I would find that when I was in NYU getting my master's, and when I was at Western Michigan getting my undergrad, I would constantly be talking to my friends about like, why do you think you're right for that? Have you thought about this? Throwing ideas out about their books. And sometimes when they couldn't read music and I could, I would be like, you really need to think about this song. And we would like go through it together, and I would help prepare them for auditions. And then there were times where you're at a thing and being like, I don't know what's not working. And I would find myself being like, well, it's not a good fit. It's not the right fit for you. You're more this and this and this. Do you understand? Like, let's dialogue about this. And it isn't so much of me like telling you why I think this is and you need to listen to me, but I would much rather, if you think you're that, you need to lawyer that to me. And I'm going to give you ideas on why I agree or disagree with you. And then that is essentially what adds the confidence to you walking in the room. I was doing that with my friends for free. And so I didn't realize at the time when I started working with CGF, but the way that they work is very much in that capacity. And so with that capacity happening, I really tuned into it, and I watched the way that they challenge and celebrate and mourn with their clients about all of the successes and failures and challenges they have in their careers. And that was something that I was just like, this is an absolutely something that is gratifying and unbelievably frustrating, but also really, really exciting and emotional. I mean, you go on the journey with your actors. You really do.
Once you were in at CGF and you were working with them and everything, were there some aha moments you had now being on the other side, now getting to step back and see the full mile radius of a career that maybe you couldn't see as an actor? You know, like when you're right in that moment, you're looking at someone else's career, you have a more soft focus, if you will. Were there any like aha moments that you had in terms of like, oh, that didn't click for me personally when I was performing, or just, I guess, just lessons or things that stand out in your mind that you were like, you know, once you're on the other side of the table, there's something there where you're like, oh, that makes more sense. Or I don't know, is this ringing anything for you?
No, completely. I mean, aha. So there are moments where, first of all, what was exciting is when I left. But when I officially made the decision of being like, I don't think this is for me, I'm okay to hang this up. Walking away from the business willingly is one of the best things that you can do. And the idea is like, look, I had success. I had success for me. I was able to do these things and have wonderful experiences and meet incredible people and get to tell stories and do all that. And that was wonderful. And to be able to say to myself and look at myself in the mirror and being like, and that's enough for that. And I'm okay to move on to whatever the next thing is and not feel like what could have been. And there's you're able to say to yourself, there's no resentment there. There's no frustration there.
No regrets.
There's no regrets in what is like in the rearview mirror. And I'm able to, when you walk away willingly, you're able to take what you've learned and just bring it with you forward. And so as far as like aha moments, I remember talking to clients, and like we'll jump to when I was actually already an agent and I was in the thick of it.
Sure.
When you're dealing with the nonsense that is being an actor in New York, no one understands talking about the craziness of being like, I'm going to need you to memorize 24 pages of sides, which is 4 scenes and 2 songs, by tomorrow at noon, and it is 5:51 the day before. The empathy that you have as an actor and the way that you can try to problem solve with your client is something that draws you back. And you're just like, I only would have known that because I remember having that conversation with my agent. And I liked that they did this, or I hated that they handled it this way.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to do it differently or the same based on what that experience was.
Yeah.
I mean, that is definitely something where I will do that. And I'm like, this is definitely the right choice. I'm glad I was an actor. I'm glad that is feeding this into me. This makes sense. Going to school for why I did. There's times where you get the validation of, okay, I'm not completely crazy. Maybe I'm not terrible at this job. There's that. I mean, I make that joke all the time of being like, do I know what I'm doing? Do I really know what I'm doing? What am I doing?
Do any of us?
Right? But you're like, I mean, what am I doing? I'm arguing with people asking for more stuff every day. That is like what we do. It's more money. It's more, it's all of this. It's so funny the way that you do it, and how many ways can I say that with how much humor and sarcasm, and it is what it is.
Oh my goodness. That is so true. Are there now, and I know this is a difficult question to answer. Are there things now that the emotion is removed for you? I mean, you're still emotionally invested in your clients. I'm not saying you're not, but it's not you're not personally the person that has to memorize these lines in 6 hours. Are there pieces of advice maybe that you would give an actor who is still emotionally invested in their career, because it is their career, now that you're on the other side of it? And I'm not saying like agents aren't emotionally invested, but there is a sense of like, you're looking at it from a business standpoint.
Completely.
You're not looking at it, well, you maybe you are as well, looking at it from like the emotional stuff that takes place with them, and am I going to work again, or I haven't worked in 6 months, all that stuff that you're maybe not, you're not dealing with that.
When it is such a huge, I mean, it's interesting. You actually said it. What I learned, if 37-year-old Brett could talk to 27-year-old Brett, I would tell myself, you don't take it personal. There is so much about this business that is not fair and that is frustrating and but one thing that it is not at all is personal. And it's when you're on the other side and you see that the agents are trying to do their job, the casting directors are trying to do their job, and the producers of the show are trying to do theirs. It is not about, I don't want this person because of A, B, and C. It's like, I have to get this and this and this. What is the easiest way for me to get those things? And then who can just do that? The first person who's able to do that is all I need. And that is that I will take that. And like you learn with casting directors, all they want to do is give you that job. And it's interesting is there are some of the,
It's so true.
it is such a thankless position, Clay. It is, I like talk to them and I'm like, you are gatekeepers. Your jobs are so hard. And when they're good at it, they are amazing at it. Yeah. But it's such an interesting thing is that we are the sellers, they are the buyers, and then but guess what? They also then have to go and talk to their bosses about what they just bought. And it's a really like the gatekeepers of the world, of the industry. And I do think that at times they're not given the credit that they deserve. All of that to say that what I would say to an actor is the emotion that you have in it and what you are doing and why you are choosing to pursue this. That's the love. That's the passion. That's the fire. That is exactly what you need in order to be in this field. You should not do anything else. You have to approach the auditioning, which is the actual job of it, from a business standpoint. If you're able to do that and find some level of disconnect from the emotion, you're going to do better. Because the idea is you're going to approach this of there's more confidence in this of being like, it is matter of fact. This is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing this the best that I can, and then I'm going to move on and go and do the next thing. Mm-hmm. And whatever happens after I've left that room is completely beyond my control. And whether they like me and cast me or like me and don't like me is completely out of my control. And I feel like that is the approach, and it's not until I've been in the room and watched how disconnected it is from any level of humanity, and I actually mean that in a good way. It is very businesslike that it's one of those things you're like, oh, there it is. That is why. That is what I would say to someone who's jumping into it. Let the love and the passion and everything you have for it, that is very important, and that will stay inside. And then share that with your close-knit group of people that you share around you that bring you joy and bring you happiness. But when you're actually doing the job, come at it from a business mindset. I feel like you will be stronger if you do that. I also think the schools that do that and push that direction, that is why their students find more success. Yeah. Because there's so many talented people out there.
Well, yeah. I mean, you get to a certain point.
Unbelievably talented
Everyone
people.
can sing.
Yeah.
You get to that callback room, it's like, they can all do it.
Well, and that's like, you think about that example. Like, what are they doing when everyone comes in and sounds great and everyone looks good? You have to start looking for these strange things. That's when, like, the joke on, do they fit into the costume? Do they look enough like this person? If they're an understudy or something, or that person looks like my ex-girlfriend or my ex-boyfriend, I don't want them. Like, it's that... It turns into that when you're that good, or when you're at that level, which is where they need to start choosing you, and they don't have enough. They don't have enough to say. They don't have enough reason to cut.
Yeah.
No.
That's a really good answer. That's a really good question, the way you rephrased it. 37 to 27-year-old. That's, That's so true. Because the second you take the emotion out of it, after you've put all the emotion you need to put into the scene and everything, once you take the emotion out of the business transaction that is, auditioning and callbacks, it's like time management, emotional management. You save yourself a lot of ice cream and alcohol. You save yourself all of that. And you just quicker move on to the next thing.
And that's why sometimes when people go and they do the grind and they're going to so many auditions and it starts to hurt their soul, that's what, take a break. Go on vacation, go upstate, depending on the season, go apple picking, go sledding. There are things that you can do with those who you love that will remind you why you're here. Not letting yourself sit in that room with the fluorescent lights, listening to people peacock and talk about how amazing and why they should be in this show and why they almost got this and how the director's their best friend, and that negative energy that lives in those holding rooms that can just eat at you and then make it worse. And it's finding a way to balance that and not let that affect you.
Yeah. My follow-up question is, do you feel like there's anything that's important that's missing from this industry? And I feel like you might have just answered it, a sense, with humanity.
I think that, there are times, what is nice is there are people in their offices that have found a way. And imagine as an actor, you walk into a room, think of when you are just treated with respect and you leave, how you feel, to when you just feel like you're a number. The difference is crazy. Oh, yeah. And if you're able to leave there and being like, look, I don't know, but they looked me in the eye, or they talked to me, they said my name, they literally at least acknowledged that I existed in the room. And so I'm able to go on with my day, and I feel like I just contributed to that. Get the job, not get the job. That is something that I think is important. So you are right that depending on time constraints and what is happening and who is in the room, sometimes humanity is not there with it and with them and with you. So allowing that to be okay and not affecting what you do, because going back to the idea of it being personal, one thing I can promise, when you walk into a room and you feel like, oh, I remember, you feel like the cold chill, or the room is silent, or everyone's eating or something, everyone's on their computer, something terrible, where you just feel like it doesn't even matter that I'm here. But to be able to say, you know what, I waited, or this is my appointment, or this is my time, and you go over and you put yourself down to your accompanist, or if you're doing a monologue, you do whatever you need to do, and you walk out and you're like, I'm still here to do this, and not allowing whatever that humanity or lack thereof in the room to affect the work you're going to do. That would be the advice I would say in that world. So what is missing? Humanity, but because we know that it is, be prepared that it could be. And keep going forward, realizing that sometimes it will be there and sometimes it won't. Likely, the further down the road you get in the callback and final callback period, the more humanity starts to exist, because the more that they have a stake in you.
They need you.
Yeah. And so that's what's funny about the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, going back to what you said about casting directors being, it's a thankless job. I'll never forget, my first callback with a tour, the casting director is there, now it's all of a sudden the stakes are higher because everyone who's there is because of the casting director.
Completely.
So Jesus, please, one of you be good.
They want you to do it. They want you to leave the room and then them to look at the producer, to look at the casting director and be like, good job. Yeah. You've given us a lot of options. That's a perfect world for a casting director.
It is.
And sometimes it doesn't happen. And it has nothing to do with the talent that did or didn't walk into the room. That's what's crazy.
It's just the way the day played out. I'm curious if we change topics slightly and we head on over to negotiating.
Oh, sure.
Are there things you've learned about it? Part one. Part two, maybe someone who doesn't have representation, or someone who's seeking representation or working their way into someone who's new in the industry. Are there pitfalls, potholes, things to look out for, tricks that are played? And I can tell, this isn't story time for Clay, but I can tell a story to kind of,
Please
spike the, thing. I was very young doing community theater, and I could make all the performances except the last one. I had a wedding I had to go to. No, it wasn't a wedding. It was a 50th anniversary for my grandparents, so their reunion. And my mother, who was acting as my agent at the time, said he can do all these shows except this last one. The producer was like, well, great, thank you. We're going to find someone else. And in my mom's mind, she's like, okay, buddy, good luck finding another parent that's going to drive their kid to 47 shows, 37 rehearsals, all that stuff. But it was the name of the game where she didn't cave on that because we had a cruise we had to go to or whatever. It wasn't like we would have. But it's just an interesting, it was like he who cares least wins in negotiating. And that was like, and I didn't hear this story until I was in high school because I was in second grade, when that went down.
Oh,
but
sure.
I'm curious. I mean, I imagine that still happens, today. And it's like, if you got a wedding, you got to go to. You got a wedding, you got to go to. Don't cave on it. Very superficial example. Curious though, things that come to mind.
Well, I'll tell you that, that's actually not that superficial, and we deal with those we navigate around those things a lot. Weddings
Adjusting the sails of the ship.
birthdays and this is the thing, and something that people have lives, and people have those that are important to them, that have events in their lives that they want to be a part of. Yeah. I remember when my brother got married, I had a job, and I was my brother's best man, and it was a very small wedding. We were in tech, the end of rehearsal, the beginning of tech, and I was just like, I don't need to be there for the reception. I need to stand next to him. And the job was in Illinois, I think, or Indiana. Oof, I can't remember.
It was an I.
Something like that, Midwest.
Okay.
And he was getting married in Kalamazoo. So it was not far away. It was a very quick flight if I were to do it. I flew in at 11 a.m. We negotiated it. My agent did. I flew in. I was excused one day. I flew in at 11 a.m., was with him, picked up the cake, picked up our tuxes, did all the stuff we needed to do, dropped it off, hung out with him prior to his wedding, went there, stood, met the family, had the whole situation. That was wonderful. She walks down the aisle. I stand there. That's great. We celebrate. They get married. It's wonderful. We walk up into the reception. I walk in. I have one glass of champagne. I do the best man toast about 10 minutes into the speech or into the reception. And then I go to the coat check, which is where I change back into my regular clothes, hang it in the coat check, grab my suitcase, and leave in and out in 13 and a half hours in order to make it back to be able to be at rehearsal the next morning. I was barely at the reception. But to him, and that was one of the things of being like, it's not going to be pretty, but I need to acknowledge that I'm a person as well as being an actor at that time. And so when actors come and say those kinds of things, you're like, okay, then I will do what I can do. But that all goes to say, like, you want to know what I learned? The power of no. That is the only time you can officially take power. And that means you need to be okay with the job going away. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. More often than not, it does. If you do that, there are occasions where you are the answer. And you're like, look, if we can't agree on this money, if we can't agree on these dates, if we can't agree on whatever it is that you're trying to negotiate that they won't give, then this person needs to walk away. And we wish you guys the best. And that power allows them to be like, wait. Let me go back and see what we can do. And I'm going to come back to you with either an acceptance or a counter or something like that. What you learn in the process of this, and what I have learned, is it's always important to start small and start with things that you understand, which is I need to know like what it is. I need to learn about the theater. I need to learn about the contract that I'm negotiating. And then because being in equity, everything has parameters. You need to know what those parameters are before you negotiate, or you will sound stupid. You will ask for things that are completely above or below, or you need to understand what the minimums are of those. And that takes time. That takes time and practice. So you get an offer and you see what the contract is and you learn about that contract. So then you can talk, intelligently about it. So that's what has been great. And what I've loved, that is, again, we're going back to like my right brain. You kind of get and you completely understand it. My favorite thing as an agent is being underestimated. I love it. And it doesn't come in a way, they're never disrespectful. Yeah. They're never in a way like that, but they'll be a little bit condescending. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then you can kind of just respond to them using the language, using the law.
Article 1, Section A.
And you just jump into it of being like, I'm not really sure why you're saying this when it's actually and that's a really lovely place to be. Yeah. And what's nice is the longer I've been doing it, the less I've had to have that conversation. But I mean, being prepared that early on is something that my bosses were like, you need to know it.
Yeah.
And I remember Joel Carlton used to quiz me. And I would be home and I'd be like, tomorrow he's going to quiz me. I know he's going to ask me about it.
Is this like about like an equity
About
like
whether
Lord
it's Lord
A
or SBT or whatever. I mean, but you would do those and be like, what are the minimums? So what are the standards? What, like, if it's going to be, what do they have to provide? Like, what is the rule? How far is the housing allowed to be away from the theater? Like, those are rules.
Yeah, they
and
are.
so, like, understanding what those are, and that was something that was really, really, but then you ultimately get to the point that you kind of start to feed on it, and then you very quickly realize it's mostly the same. So you learn and you're like, all right, I know. And then you can reference it and it becomes a lot easier. But then you jump up to tours and that's a whole different beast. Is it a seated contract? Is it a production contract? What does that mean? And so those were things that we're understanding that were fun. All of that to say, and to go back to the second part of your question, as an actor, when you are negotiating for yourself, ask yourself a very specific question, which is, when I function in life right now, what do I need? Looking at the offer, how much of that is covered in that offer? So this is what I need. This is what was offered. The area between, that is where you negotiate. Are we talking about money? Are we talking about a gym membership? Are we talking about housing that is not okay because, you know what, I'm a 35-year-old man and I'm not living in bunk beds with 3 other people in a room and sharing a bathroom? Like, there are, depending on where you're going, I mean, that was exaggeration, but the idea is...
It exists.
It does.
It exists.
And particularly if we're talking in the world of non-union, the sky is the limit, or I should say the basement is the limit for what they're able to do.
Yeah.
And so it's just being clear of, I would say, the power of no, because am I willing to let this job go, let this validation go, because I cannot live like that. I will lose money while I'm away. It's going to be a miserable experience. Or this is what I need to live. This is what they've offered. It's close enough. Let's ask and see what we can get, realizing we probably won't get anything or everything. And then there's a compromise between. Is what I'm being given enough that it's worth me going to do this job? That's in a nutshell, that's all negotiation is. And as agents, what we do, our job is to procure employment opportunities, negotiate offers that come in on their on their behalf, and then advise our clients. That is what we do in all of the aspects. So we will advise you on what the offer is. We'll advise you on if we think it's a good idea. At the end of the day, it's our client's decision to make. And what we do is there are many times that I have said things and I have been adamant for or against something, and the client has agreed or disagreed with me. And that's okay. It is your job. I'm just here as an additional line of defense for you. And that's what we're trying to do. And I might be crabby about it if I worry because it's not where we see you going. That is very important but I mean, ultimately that goes back to the idea and like representing people's, it's a relationship and we need to be going for the same thing. If we're not, then what are we doing? You should go with someone who sees it exactly the way that you do, not with someone who doesn't, because then you'll just fight the whole time. Just like in someone you're dating or married to or whatever. And I mean, it's the same aspect. If you're not going together, does it make sense for you to be together then? Mm-hmm. That's what I would say.
That's true. No, that's so true. And as we keep moving along here, this conversation is flying by. I wonder if it is for anyone else listening when they listen in a month.
Well, and I imagine I talk way too much, Clay, so you cut all the crap out of here.
No, I don't.
Oh,
I don't
man.
cut. I keep it all. I do.
I want you to know that I'm on my best behavior. I have a potty mouth, and I'm trying so hard to behave. This
is adult programming, so if the filter goes away, that's
all right.
That's okay. That's permissible. Reputation and relationships in the industry. Curious what your views are. I mean, you shared a good amount about it thus far. I'm just curious if there's anything else that comes to mind in terms of reputation. Your reputation at the beginning, knowing the limits of the contracts. Now you have one, and there is more. But like even as an actor, you have reputation.
Well, I mean, and everyone. You're right. My reputation as an actor was that I was a great guy, and if it was for this and this, I was a decent fit. And I would say, like, I think I was a satisfactory actor. I think that, like, I would go, I mean, and like in looking, and that's the thing is I will see some of the clients that we represent now, and I am in awe of, what they do. I'm like, that facility is not in me.
The banjo, the guitar, the piano, and a six-pack.
Right, and the thing, but like, oh, and also you can sing this or do this, or you're a trained ballet, and like the things that they are able to do. That's the most fun. It's just being in awe and celebrating them.
Yeah.
So I mean, like that is an aspect, but the reputation that you have as an actor did move over, which is where everyone's like, oh, I know Brett. Oh, he's in, like, that's how it begins. And then the more you communicate with them, if you prove yourself reliable, you prove yourself approachable, you prove yourself independent, which is where the idea is they not only trust you, but realize they can come to you, whether it is in confidence or whether you are, yes, I am an entity of CGF, but I'm also a person. And if you want to talk about something off the record, whatever, we can have conversations. The idea is you prove yourself trustworthy. The more that you do that, then the better, the more that you will succeed, and the more people will adhere to you in the way that you make suggestions on shows and pushes and things like that. I mean, they begin to listen to you, but that takes time. And look, I'll tell you, being early in, I mean, all of my bosses have been doing it for more than a decade, and I have not. I mean, from an intern, I have been doing this for 6 years, just over 6 years. So with that in mind, you continue to do it, and they'll keep being like, it's going to be continue to learn. When does it work? When does it not work? Why does it work? What did they say back? Like, and that is how you learn. And the more, all it takes is you pushing someone, casting trust in you, that person getting called back and booking the job. Casting will now be like, well, Brett gave me that idea. So I know that when he's pushing this idea, whether it is right or not, it's informed. It's not a guess. It's not just trying to get more people in front of him. And that is very much how our office works in particular. I'm also really, really fortunate that I work with an office that had a very good reputation prior to me being there. Christopher, Michael, and Joel all had their own great reputations. All of casting trusted them. So when they began their company, casting came to them and trusted their ideas. I then, under that umbrella, am able to, I'm given like a little boost, which is that my office is validating that I have things to say and that they've trusted me with these accounts to go forward. So I fully acknowledge that. And then ultimately that is what you try to do, as that is the goal, is you build your reputation. I mean, what is sad is several of my colleagues and some of my friends have had rough goes, or something has happened that has hurt their reputation, and it's building it back. That's hard.
It is, but that's, yeah, I mean, because we're, there's humans, human error. It's very human field.
Especially when you look on the inside and look, and you'll hear things and you're like, you'll roll your eyes, you get frustrated that it turned out the way that it did, especially if you know that they're good people, or it's really hard. But I also think that we live in a world which is where, especially popular opinion, when it is like when you have your choice of who you want to work with or what you want to accomplish, that's a part of it. People write and people say what they feel about people all the time. I mean, in social media, I mean, and then there's that. So we have that. I mean,
separate.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But I mean, that very much is a part of our diet and will help facilitate and grow your reputation or hurt it, because people will talk about you.
It's so true. And this brings me back to a book that I read this book in November. It's called like Untold Stories of Hollywood, CAA agency. They wrote a book. It's a great book.
Wait, CAA wrote a book?
A guy wrote a book interviewing agents from CAA.
Okay.
It's a great book. It's called The Untold Stories of Hollywood. And there's so much stuff I hadn't realized that, were package deals. They represented a producer, a director, and actors. They put them together and brought them to a network, or, Warner Brothers, and said, we got all these people. They all agreed. Want to do it? And they're like, great, Lethal Weapon. And like there's so many package deals, which aren't really the case anymore because everything's been spread out among more agencies. But it was a lot of it. But the big thing was that it was, this human communication, understanding what someone's likes were, understanding what someone's dislikes were. And I say all of this to ask you what you've learned about human communication.
It is.
That was a wall of a question.
No, but it was good. But it was good. You brought it back and you pinpointed it right at me. I mean, first of all, it's key. And it is when all we are doing, when my job as an agent is exclusively communication. whether that is with my client, whether that is with casting, whether that is with producers when we're negotiating a contract. If you cannot do that successfully, concisely, and thoroughly, then it's not the right job for you. There are elements of fear and excitement and standoffishness. All of those things are part
Anxiety,
of the beast.
all of it,
Oh my
yeah.
God. It's all a part of when you are doing this. But if you can't communicate well, then you're sunk. Because then your clients don't understand what you're trying to do on their behalf, or you're not communicating what they need to do to be able to walk in the room successfully, or when you're talking with casting and you have ideas, if you can't come up with the right way to let them know that you're inspired about these ideas and why, then they won't necessarily believe you and take you up on your ideas.
Correct.
Or when you're negotiating for someone and you're trying to explain why they need to have this much more money, or why they need to have their own car, or why they need to do this, and you can't do it in a way that is believable or human-like, if you are very, very mechanical in the way, then maybe they won't believe you and maybe it won't work out, and then you're not necessarily being effective at your job. So communication is key. All forms: email, talking on the phone, and texting if it's needed, and particularly with the clients. I love, one of my favorite ways I do the best. I don't know if you know this, is I talk too much. I talk a lot. And so I love the initial communication on the phone. And then I love the follow-up via email, because I think that what you can do with inflection and tone and like wit and sarcasm and fun, I want them to know that I'm a person and that I'm listening to what they have to say. I'm not just asking like, gimme, 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 gimme. And it's interesting is that sometimes that works really, really well. And other times I will call and there'll be no response and I'll get an email back. And then I will call again and there'll be no response and I'll get another email back. And so they've then chosen, like, what email is the appropriate way, which you'll do. We'll communicate however we can communicate.
Yeah.
But you try to aim it toward where your strengths are and then see how your negotiating partner works from there.
You're bringing up a really great point, because I personally thoroughly enjoyed our email exchange. The way we chatted.
Well,
I
and you
did.
liked the way when I was just like, sorry, I have to cancel this right now the first time around.
I'm not even talking about. I'm talking about like the coo. Like we were just chatting. Like we were like.
My nephew
was
says that. I should
normal.
not. Oh, did I drop
No,
something?
keep it. That was my phone.
Okay.
Keep it. I think it's fun. I think it's great, because I was like, because we had never met.
Yeah.
Anywhere. And so to have that, rapport ASAP right off the bat. And the one thing that comes to mind, so I had over the summer, I had Jonathan Groff on the show, and he signed his email with the girl in the red dress. And then under it puts hyphen, J,
Good for
JG.
him.
But no one does that.
I love that.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoy these things that stand out with email, because email is so monotonous. And I've felt the shade and the tea from people.
Oh, sure.
When I'm
sure.
going back with someone like a company owner or whatever, and it's like you just feel it's like the hands. I'm like, oh God. But so I was just saying, I really enjoy it. I think it's fun when you can find your language in email.
We'll have a joke of when we'll talk about when you're upset with somebody or when you're frustrated, how your signature changes. So my standard when it's neutral is all my best.
Okay.
Or best or something like that.
Yeah.
When it is if there's nothing, then if there is no word, and if you get an initial from me, we're usually in good shape. B. Yeah. If you get my name, Brett, then I'm kind of like, okay, if it's just dash Brett, we're probably having some problems. Or I'm frustrated or annoyed or something like that. And I can't remember, there's fun. I think there's people, I won't name names, but Laura, my wife, she gets them all the time from her job. Yeah. And when she's dealing with actors and dealing with love and light is one. And so we'll say things like that.
Peace and blessings.
Yeah.
And
You'll
it's
get
not
these
my
ones.
priest.
You're just like, what is that? But the idea, if that is what people, and you're like, that's what's Zen for them, you end up being like, oh, that's nice. I appreciate that you say that. Mm-hmm. We have someone who says on their thing, hey, this is so-and-so. I like you. That is their voicemail message. I'm just like, well, I like you too. But you started. It's just funny how people greet in that idea. That's on his voicemail. Also, what happens if someone calls that you don't like? It's like a done deal. You've already said I like you in the voicemail.
That's true. You don't
People
have
call me
options.
that I don't like. So.
And you're like, I like you.
And you already say it. It's a problem. It's rough.
No, it's so true. Yeah, mine is thanks, period, hyphen, Clay. and you're thanking them for nothing's happened. It's just that you're just saying thanks because you catch it. You catch it, or and we're moving on from this email thing. But the last one was I did a social experiment. I got an answer the other day it was a bit curt. So instead of doing my usual response, I responded the same way they responded. No salutation, none of that. I just responded the same way. And then their response following mine is like they almost caught my shade and they, added a smiley face.
Turned the tone.
And I was like, I didn't even do any. It was a social experiment on my end, but I was like, I just copied I just literally did the same thing you did. I didn't make it worse, but you could tell after I did that. So it's funny.
That's huge. But I mean, that happens all the time. Yeah. When I will get a curt response or it's somebody answering or something like that I was just like, so I feel like that's a little bit of an overreaction with what you're doing. My response will usually be understood, period. And then go on to say what it is that I need to say. But when you keep the curtness, you're like, look, I'm not, this isn't personal. No. More often than not, especially with email exchanges, it's not. It is the exchanging of information. So I think that is a great idea. And look at what happened. I feel like it was often fascinating. When you do that is what will happen. I
was like, oh, this was interesting. On to the next thing. So we are getting down to the end here, but I am curious. I want to try and see how many of these I can shove into the end of this conversation.
No, go ahead. And we can do like a rapid fire.
Instagram. Speaking on Instagram, good, bad, otherwise. How often? And I'm curious if you're willing to let us sneak a little bit into CGF here. How many of you guys look at Instagram? What does it mean to you? Does it matter?
So I am referred to as Instagramless Brett. Our company has an Instagram that our assistant Leah takes care of, and she's amazing with it. The partner Michael Goddard, he is very active on it. Christopher Freer, the other partner besides Joel, he uses it for fitness a lot. We are active on it when we have opening nights. There's something we do use it. I know that I look at it a lot with clients. I will look at it, but I don't have one that is active myself. The thing is, it's the current social media. It is the accepted one. It is what people are using. And frankly, it's the most pleasant of all of them.
Yeah.
There's something really nice about that. You're not bombarded with things that you don't really want to see. It's either pleasantries, pictures of people enjoying themselves, or things funny, impressive or otherwise that you want to be a part of. So, I mean, I enjoy looking at it. Yeah. I'm not cool enough to have it myself. No one wants in on my life. No one wants in on that.
Well, you know what's so funny is if you check like your iPhone screen time, most people right now, the most used app is Instagram.
Not surprising at all.
Not at all. But it's not for you. It's not Instagram for you because you don't have one.
Yeah, it's Instagramless Brett. I love that. That's my hashtag with The Office, which is funny.
Do you find yourself on your phone on any app in particular a lot, or any? I don't know. I'm just curious. Or is it email?
No, I do. A true confession is I am obsessed with the New York Rangers, like to a point.
Oh, New York Rangers? Yeah.
When I was an actor, I decided I needed something else because I was getting frustrated, a little bit burnt out. I needed to put my heart into something else that was not just the business. When I was a kid, we would always go to Detroit Red Wings game because I'm from Michigan. So we would drive over there on Sundays with my dad, and it was a wonderful experience, and they were amazing at the time. So that was really, really enjoyable. I moved out here. My sister took me to a Devils game, and they were playing the Rangers, and the Devils were a bunch of assholes. The Rangers had like this class that I really, really liked. So I kind of like randomly started following them a little bit.
Okay.
Fast forward to me becoming obsessed with them. Games, I had season tickets for 2 years. I mean, it was a thing.
Ranger socks.
I do. I was like, wait, did I wear those today? No, but I don't. But I mean, I will tell you, like, looking my wallet right here. Yeah. My wife got me this. This is an actual piece of a game cup of a Stanley Cup playoff game.
Oh my God, it is.
Yeah,
and
so
NHL.
That is like those are things that's actually a Ranger cup. Like there are things like that it plagues. If you look at my desk, it is covered in Ranger stuff. It's pretty impressive.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, so I mean that is something. So what I will regularly when we just finished a trading batch. I was probably every 45 seconds looking and seeing who was traded or what the rumors were about somebody being traded and why. Yeah. And then when they're playing, I'm always watching and doing that. That is probably outside of anything that deals with work. It's definitely Ranger related, hockey related.
No, that's really good because especially in this industry no matter what side of tables or rooms or whatever you're on, it's good to have those separate, palate cleansers.
Completely.
It was football for me this year, and it was the smartest thing I ever did because I don't consider myself to be a sports person, but I was like, oh, and now it's basketball. And I'm
What was the team? Did you like choose a team and follow them or?
Oh, I keep it real simple. Whatever friend I'm talking to the most, whatever they're rooting for. So this year was the Kansas City Chiefs.
Sure.
And that game, we watched that. It was, we were upset.
Oh,
But
that was
we don't
devastating.
want to talk about the calls. And then the Saints, and I was like, well, if the Saints, okay.
Yeah.
So then we had the Super Bowl party, and, we watched the commercials and mute the game.
Also, what a boring game.
It was a boring game. Yeah. But and now it's basketball. But it's good to have something else to talk about. That's not what show is going on tour.
No, and what no, absolutely, and it's
balance.
interesting. Is so when I have too much to drink, I talk about the Rangers and I talk about vocal pedagogy, and I find when I'll get drunk, I'll be like, and when the voice is, and like my wife is like, no, babe, no one cares. I'm like, well, it's just too much subglottic pressure. And I have like, it's especially when I'll have like my friends over that are also pedagogues. Yeah. That is something that is very,
pedagogues.
Oh my!
I love
that's
it.
real. Sorry, I try to keep it under wraps. I totally try to keep it under wraps. Sorry.
Oh, I didn't hear about that one yet. No, that's funny.
Yeah.
So essentially, you probably already answered your balance, your work-life balance, things that keep you balanced. In life, what's most important to you?
Oh.
When it's not the Rangers.
Good. I was going to say when we get out of that season, I think what is important to me, honestly, is striving for balance. So balance is what is important to me. I'm very rarely successful, but it doesn't mean I don't strive. I communicate. Laura and I talk all the time. I regularly try to talk to my family and my friends and those that are close to me to do something that is not this business, and also do things that involve my nieces and nephews or my goddaughter or something that allows you to keep humanity alive. Friends, family, things you're passionate about, going out of like trying to find so that you're a well-balanced, even person, because I find that when you strive for that, you're not successful often, but you're able to touch on those things, and then the things that remain important to you, and those people and the around you understand that and realize that. It's the goal and the effort of trying to do that. And when we live in a city and we work in a business that is a fickle mistress, and she's mean to you, and when you know that,
mistress.
I mean, she's
love it.
mean.
She is.
She's mean. I was going to use other words, but I'm not going to use them. She
doesn't call a lot.
She doesn't. And when she does, it's late and she's drunk.
Yeah.
And she just says things that hurt your feelings. And so the idea is like you have to be able to find other parts of that. You have to go. So I would say happiness is balance, and trying to strive to find that balance.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. Is there a piece of advice that you'd give a smart, driven college student?
Who's trying to break out into this?
Yeah, maybe a recent graduate.
I mean, definitely like what we talked about, which is don't take it personal, and realize it is a business. It's not about you the way that I think people worry that it becomes about them. You didn't get the job because you weren't pretty enough, or you couldn't sing high enough, or it wasn't the right role, or it's not necessarily about that. I would say realize that it's not personal. I would also say my advice would be focus on the 20% you can control, not the 80 that you can't. What you can control, and we'll talk about like people who are breaking out, not necessarily who have representation, but people who are trying to break into the business.
Yeah.
You can control your headshot. You can control the song that you walk in when you sing for them first. You can control your attitude when you go into the room, and you can control what is in your book if they ask for other things. You are allowed that initial thing, how you dress. This is the way I see myself and why. Be able and willing to articulate why that is, because if you are challenged, then you need to be able to articulate that and then realize if it makes sense. Listen to what is being given to you, but also it's not law. I mean, that is the 20% you can control. Those are the things that are tangible, that I mean, that moment you sing, you walk in, the attitude you have when you walk into the room, how you feel when you are just doing that before you sing your piece, all of those things are yours. Once you finish that song, once sides are put in your hand, once it is the callback period and all of that, immediately goes away. And the idea is you're now a part of it. And realize what's great is now they go in search of it in you, which is a really good place to be. You were able to be yourself in that 20%. So be you and how you would say these lines, or you would sing these songs, or you walk into this room. You're not a character, you're you. Let that be the 20%. And then from that point, they will, if there's interest, they will try to fit it on you. And you can then just keep being you, singing this song, or saying these lines, or having this experience, and you're able to do that. And what's wonderful about that is then you're the one who gets the role, and it's your interpretation of the role, which is why you got it. Not because you're trying to be a character. And that's why I would always say, control the 20% you can, not the 80 that you can't.
That's really good advice.
I was like right out of here.
For a guy, he was pointing to his heart.
That was good.
Oh my goodness, this conversation gives me life. Okay, all right. So as we're wrapping up here, is there any additional information that you want to throw out? Just about anything, things that come to mind, maybe a question you wish I'd asked, anything that comes to mind.
Oh,
or
gosh.
did I ask every question?
I will
perfectly,
tell you,
Brett?
this is thorough. I mean, like I don't, when I teach at school, and these are things that we talk about, but it's not usually in this kind of monologue-y form.
Yeah.
And so it's good. I'm trying to think if there's anything that like we didn't cover.
What are you covering right now at NYU? Because we didn't even talk about how you teach there. Separate.
Which is completely fine. I love it.
separate.
I mean, that's where I got my master's, and I was fortunate enough that I initially returned there and actually taught voice lessons for a few years. Then my job at CGF took off, and I wasn't able to remain. It just so happened that things then changed in where teachers were assigned, and there was a changing of the guard among the administrative people, and I fit in this very weird spot, which is where they needed someone to teach the outgoing seniors and second-year grads they needed to teach them business skills, which was essentially the business of the business and what it is you do when you're done.
Yeah.
And as well as produce their showcases. Now, I don't direct it. There's a different director and music director and choreographer and all that stuff, but I do produce them, which is where I put them in the space. I invite the industry. I kind of deal with all of that.
Yeah.
And there's something really fulfilling about it that was my school, and that was the school that I showcased with when I did my master's. I finished with that, and I got my agent and everything from there. And there were so many aspects of that experience as a master's student that I enjoyed and didn't enjoy. And so now as a producer, I try to work with the team that's there now to help improve it.
That's great.
So, I mean, that's something that's enjoyable and I love doing. And so that's what I talk about with those kids in that time. What we just have done in an hour or whatever, that is something that we spread out and take a lot more time with for a semester.
Yeah. It's always I love hearing about, I was going to say it's always so interesting, and I love hearing you're an agent and you also do this thing at NYU, which no one would know about unless they either listen to this or know that about you.
Sure.
And there's so many different professionals in this industry who have those second things they do. I was doing a thing with Disney Parks and Resorts, and the piano player is also music directing a show that's trying to work its way over to the B-Way. Wouldn't know that unless you talk to the person, but I love it because there's no one, you would think in any other field, I've been teaching math for X amount of years, I'm not going to go do something else over here. That's what I do. But in this industry, there's so many hats that everyone wears. It's so interesting to hear oh, this is what else you do. Completely. I don't even know. It's nothing to do with income. It's just this is what else you have time to do.
And it's such a small community.
Yeah.
I mean, and that is what I think there are so many actors. That is true. At the end of the day, it really is a small community.
Yeah.
And everybody knows everybody's business.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not to be proud of. What I find fascinating is during the day, during the week, during an audition week, 1.5 million actors are populating 25 blocks of Manhattan between the studios and classes and everything that they are doing. They're all there, which is why you always see people when you're at auditions or when you're going to, like, when you're having that experience or eating around or seeing a show or doing whatever you're doing. That's why you see everyone in that pocket, because everyone gravitates to that, because that's what it is, whether it's their job or their passion or their audition or whatever it is.
It's the
they're
office
all
building.
in that thing. Yeah. And so it's really interesting to me that although and we are talking about millions of people, it is a small community.
Oh, it's tiny.
It's
No, seriously. Like, the gym is downstairs, and I realize even at 6 a.m. when I get out the elevator, I am now in the office building. And you never believe who you see. I mean, that's the whole thing. It's like, be nice to your accompanist. They might be your music director. Well, that was the case with this guy that I met. It's just so funny.
It's true.
Because
it's completely true.
It is literally that small. Wow. Anyway, okay. If there's a word or phrase that you would put on a billboard for millions, the 1.5 million actors that are populating the 25 blocks, or anything, does anything come to mind? Any of the themes we've talked about this evening?
Oh, a word or phrase
or story. I mean, it can be.
Oh, I can put like a story on the billboard.
The billboard
box?
can be digital. It can change.
I would say I would use 2 different words. Is how I would do. 2 different billboards. So let's do. It's going to be one of those.
Great.
I would choose patience and everything that patience means in regards to the business. That means so many different things. And then equally important but completely different is grace and the way that you handle those things. Patience, because whether it is patience on the next job, patience on the first job, patience on the casting process, patience on the relationship that you have with your agent or manager, whatever that you are, there's never patience with your loved one while you're frustrated and stressed about having to learn all of the, there's just never a time that word isn't effective and isn't important in what we're doing. I would use that word, and that's something that I have to take a deep breath and say to myself on a fairly regular basis. In grace, because whether it is a positive thing or a negative thing, that is something that I think all people should approach life with. You need to find grace in order to exist among other human beings. And if you can't, then you shouldn't necessarily be around other human beings. and we can all think of people that need to find that a lot more, but I feel like if people were to strive toward that, it would be a much more pleasant place. So I would put those 2 words of equal importance right next to one another with like not like yes together, but I would put like a backslash in there. So they like 50% of each of those on my billboard. And then I want the billboard to be by 155 because that's by my apartment. So then I could see it and like remind myself as I walk by.
I love that. Right over the Boston Market.
Yeah, all right. 157.
That's
I got
how small this freaking island is. Patience and grace. I love that. Brett, thank you for having this conversation with me. Thank you for opening up and answering all of these wonderful questions. I know a lot of people are going to learn from this.
Oh, you got it, man. My pleasure. This was a blast.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Brett Rigby.
You've been listening to Entertainment X, the podcast. You can follow Entertainment X on Instagram at _EntertainmentX_. If you haven't yet, go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join Clay next week for another curiosity conversation on Entertainment X. Thank you for listening.